Hello, welcome to Tales from the House. A very serious, official-looking Tales from the House today, and all will be revealed, because I want to start today with a sort of BBC look from 1930. You see, in 1930, the BBC was the keeper of the news in this nation. They had a monopoly on it, and they decided what would be broadcast. They got their news, not necessarily from their own journalists, although they had some, but from news agencies largely, like Reuters. And then they edited it, and they decided what the news would be that evening. They felt it was their duty, as the BBC, to elevate society, to educate the public. And in terms of news, they thought it was their job to decide what the British people needed to know, and more importantly, what they should consider was important. And so, on the 18th of April, 1930, the news went like this, and I'm going to have a go at it. So, here's my screen. Let's do the news. Good evening. This is the BBC. Today, there is no news. So here is some piano music. Yes, it really did. That was the news on the 30th of April, the 18th of April, 1930. It's quite incredible, isn't it? What on earth did they think they were doing? Well, like I said, it was them who decided what they felt was newsworthy. And going through the news agencies on Reuters, they decided on Good Friday, the 18th of April, 1930, that there was no news. Obviously, I dressed a bit smarter than they did. And here you can see the broadcasting booth from the news, the BBC at the time. And I've had a look around, and there isn't very much. There's a story the government are trying to push in the newspapers the previous day. And there's a rebellion in India, in Chittagong, but the rebellion destroyed the telegraph agency, so no news had come through. So it seems, indeed, that perhaps April the 18th, 1930, there was no news. It's quite amazing to consider that. I mean, today journalists would make news up, or highlight an issue, or do a sort of investigative piece. But there we are. That's April the 18th in 1930. Fortunately for Tales from the House, we don't have to hang around in 1 year. We can go to several for our bits of news. So let's do that, shall we? And I want to go to 1906 on the 18th of April with a large earthquake in San Francisco. The San Andreas Fault opened up a 275-mile section that slipped at about 5 a.m. in the morning, measuring 8 on the Richter scale, which sadly does not qualify it in the top 10 most powerful earthquakes of all time. But the thing here is it hit a big city, and it hit a city with Victorian buildings of brick and wood, and it shattered them. The town hall crumbled on the spot, and the Palace Hotel shattered all of its windows and collapsed on people inside. At 7 a.m., the mayor called the army in to institute a curfew and martial law, and he said that anybody who was caught looting would be shot. A fire broke out across the city, and it raged because the water mains had been ruptured and the firefighters couldn't use the water to fight the fire. So they resorted to dynamiting whole blocks of San Francisco in order to try and create a fire break that the fire couldn't cross over and spread. So this is a complete catastrophe. About 250,000 people were left homeless, and they pitched their tents all over the place and just outside San Francisco. And the military provided them with the facility to do that. Quite amazing, really. But they gradually built themselves back. Here we can see some huts. They were called earthquake huts that were built to try and house some of these people temporarily. But San Francisco built itself up gradually. And in 1915, they reopened their new City Hall, which is this magnificent. And I'm pretty sure I've seen Clint Eastwood crash into that in Gauntlet. I think it's that anyway. It might be Los Angeles. So there we are. They also invited the world to see how they had rebuilt themselves in 1915 at the Pan-Pacific International Expo. The trouble was that 1915, most of the world was involved in World War I. So how much people saw the city of San Francisco rebuilt, I don't know. But it's a tremendous achievement from a day of great tragedy. And from that, I'd like to move to our third event today, which is 1968 and the sale of London Bridge. This old bridge here. This was a Victorian bridge built in the 1830s, 1831, to replace a bridge that had been there since 1209. Amazing that the bridge was there from 1209 to 1831 and then replaced with this. So I can well imagine that the medieval bridge did indeed need to be replacing. But this didn't last very long. From 1831, you can see that there's a lot of traffic on it by the start of the 19th century. And indeed, this only got worse, particularly as we enter the age of the automobile. And by 1968, this bridge is no longer fit for purpose. It is subsiding and collapsing between the weight on the weight of the traffic that's using it. So it had to go, and a new bridge was going to be built. The thing is, they decided that they would sell it, not just demolish it. And that sounds like a great idea, particularly when someone comes along to buy it. But it wasn't that straightforward. First of all, it was indeed bought by an American oil magnate. Robert P. McCulloch bought it for just under $2.5 million. And he wanted to dismantle it and take it to America. I think this is a fairly famous story, but let me tell you some about it. Some people say that he bought the wrong bridge and that in fact he wanted to buy Tower Bridge, but this is not the case. No, he did want to buy this bridge, and here's the proof. This is Robert P. McCulloch on the bridge with the sold sign, and he looks very happy about it, and he knew exactly which one he was building. So how does this story come about? Well, probably because we were not that happy to sell it. Yes, it needed to be sold. Yes, it needed to go. But consider Britain's place in the world here. 1968, we had lost our empire. We had lost our place in the world that everybody had been taught in the history books and culturally had passed down. And now we were selling chunks of our culture or our history. It jarred with the public that America could come along and buy up our history and our culture. So I can understand. You also have the fact that in 1861, only 7 years earlier, the Great Euston Arch had been demolished, and I hear stories that they're going to replace that soon and rebuild it. There'd been a great big fight to save St. Pancras Station, which if you see now is remarkable that they thought they were going to knock that down. Famously, the poet John Betjeman fought and defended for that. And that was eventually given Grade 1 listed status, meaning it couldn't be altered in 1968. So this is right at the very same time when it appears like we're doing away with our heritage, and to sell it off to other countries jarred a bit. So it was sold. And what happened to it? Well, I think we all know that it ended up in the United States, because I just told you this man, Robert P. McCulloch, wanted to take it there. Well, they took it apart in sections. And what you have here, if you look, you can see 2C31, 2C30, 2C32. You can see they've labeled the sections so that rather like a jigsaw or a puzzle, he could put it back together again on the other side. And that's what he did. Well, what on earth is he doing? He's buying it because he wants to make a tourist attraction. He takes it to Lake Havasu, which is the desert at this point in time. It's on the border between Arizona and California, and there's nothing there. It's the desert. There's not even a river. And he rebuilt it piece by piece there, not the entire length of the bridge because it's a much shorter span. And they dug underneath it and they diverted some water to create a water scene. that the bridge could be spanning, having put it in there. What's he doing this for? Well, I'll tell you in a second. Here he is, dressed up as the mayor of London in Arizona, to open the day. And it's all to create a tourist attraction for his planned retirement village development town. And it worked an absolute treat. Look at it today. It's magnificent. There is the old London Bridge built in 1830s. And you've got this wonderful vista, this wonderful lake caused by a dam further up, and a nice retirement village. And it looks really rather lovely. So he wasn't mad. He didn't build the wrong bridge. He knew what he was doing. And it all worked out pretty good, didn't it? It's magnificent. I mean, people actually visit this place today to see London Bridge. And why wouldn't they? What a terrific story. But you don't have to fly all the way to Arizona if you want to see London Bridge. No, there are parts that still remain. This is Tooley Street in Bermondsey on the south of the river. And there is a part of London Bridge and this arch that still remains there today. I'll show it to you, because if you can see the bridge there, that's it. There are some steps that go up there, and the new bridge was erected onto it. But it kept that arch on the side of the road because there was buildings around the place. Now, these steps are called Nancy steps because in Charles Dickens's Oliver Twist, these are the steps on which Dickens has Bill Sikes murder Nancy. And I know it's fictional, but there's Oliver Reed as Bill Sikes, a terrifying role. But these are the steps upon which he has that murder happen. So you can go and see this fictional spot. But there's also a pub right underneath. Here we have a pub called the Mug House, which is in the archway for Old London Bridge. And it's still part of the Old London Bridge. And you can see it if you go inside. You can see the archway there built into this old pub. Magnificent. It's not the only place you can go either. You can go to Merivale Quarry in Devon, which is here, because all of London Bridge was shipped down to here and then put on a boat to go to America. But they didn't take it all with them. They left some of it behind. They only took some of the cladding, and they didn't want the whole length of it, as you saw in the picture. They only wanted some of it for their project to create a tourist attraction in a retirement village. So if you go to Merivale Quarry in Devon and the Dartmouth Moors, you will find bits of old Victorian London Bridge lying around the place just like this. So you see, they were wrong, weren't they? There is some news today, and that's April the 18th. I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care, people. Enjoy. And we're clear.